Hey, what is up guys? This is the best, and this is a beginner and advanced deck building guide. So, what I have for you today is Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links deck building guide, essentially. Now, I can't take all the credit. This guide was built by me and my good friend Greiken. You should check out his channel when you get the time. So, let's move over to the next slide. Step 1, identify your deck type. There's a lot of deck types out there. And first of all, you need to know what kind of deck you're building. So, know what kind of deck you're going to build beforehand. So, you could build a Spellcaster's deck, you could build an Angel deck, you could build whatever you want. But, what you need to do when you decide on what deck you're going to build is pick the right character for the job. Each character has a different type of special ability, per se. The skills in this game are what make it totally different from regular Yu-Gi-Oh! So, what you want to do is decide what type of deck you're going to use. Let's say you're going to use Spellcasters, Gravekeepers for instance. You're going to pick Yami-Yugi. Why? Why would I pick Yami-Yugi? What if I want to pick my favorite character? Mako Tsunami or something like that. Well, Mako doesn't have the skill that Yugi does. Yugi has a skill that allows you to have the Yami field spell at all times, which gives you an extra 200 buff to all your Spellcasters, which is going to be a big boost. So do not mix and match your heroes and cards. So, now that you've got the right hero, and you got the card that you want, the next rule is don't build jank decks. A jank deck is a deck built of random assortments of cards that do not work together or appear to not belong in the same deck. What I mean is, this may actually going to take you a while to figure out what's a jank deck and what's not. You build the cards in the deck that belong, like Spellcaster cards belong with other Spellcasters, protection cards, and so on and so on. You'll learn later on, in later steps, what kind of cards belong in the deck, but you do want to make sure to have the right kinds of cards. You don't want to mix machine cards and Spellcasters. That's not the right thing. That will be considered a jank deck, because you may have machines in that deck, but you don't want to run machine equipped cards if you've also got Spellcasters. It just doesn't work. So, let's move on to the next slide. Step 2, the deck formatting. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is a really, really good app. It changed the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Game as we know it. It lowered the deck size to now 20 to 30 cards. However, you don't even bother with the 30. 30 cards is not the right thing to do. What you want to do is build as closely as you can to 20. 21 as a maximum. Why? Because what happens is you're going to be in the middle of the game and you're not going to draw the cards you need. In a Spellcaster's deck, let's say you got 3 of a card you want and it's a 20 card deck, and you'll most likely have a higher chance of getting it. If it's a 30 card deck, your chances of drawing that 3 diminish. What if let's say you have a bunch of cards that you want? Well, you still want to have a 20 card deck. Just the higher probability of drawing the cards you need in the right situation is very, very important. Especially since even though you could up the ratio of monsters and spells to make sure it's equal from 20 to 30, there's not enough good cards in the game for each deck in order to even make a 30. Besides, 20 is it. It's literally been proven by both Yu-Gi-Oh! Players and Magic the Gathering players that the lower the deck, which is the minimum, is the best way to go. It's just, it carries on the best. So make sure you have the proper ratio of cards in your deck. Later on, different step, we'll talk about that. So, name the deck. This is actually quite important. When you name the deck, you then know what it is, and you can get to it faster when you're editing your decks. If you're going to copy and paste a deck from one character to another, get rid of the word copy and also edit the name just a little bit. That way you know what kind of deck it is on a certain character. If it's a farming deck, just get rid of the word copy. That way you know. So, next thing, step 3, identify your drawing engine. So a lot of people do not know what a drawing engine is. And it's very simple, but very important. A drawing engine is simply to get more cards and thin your deck out so you can draw what you want when you want it. Also, the more cards you get throughout the game means you have a higher chance of winning just simply because you have seen more cards than your opponent. If you've gone through 10 cards and it's turn 3 or 4, well, your opponent most likely has only gone through 7 cards. If you've gone through 10, you can play 10. If you notice one thing, when you're attacking and you're defending, you can count the cards on the field and count the cards in your opponent's hand. If you have a card advantage, you're most likely winning. So, what kind of cards are Drawing Engine? Well, that's a good question. Certain cards that I know of that are really good, I've listed below. Gravekeepers, Blue Dragon Summoner, Legion of the Fiend Jester, Sonic Bird, Senju of Thousand Hand, Cup of Ace, Skelangel, Crystal Seer, Birdface, Elegant Egotist, Dark Mimic 1 and 2, Heart of the Underdog, Birdface, Jar of Greed, Shard of Greed, and White Elephant's Gift. These all allow you to draw more cards than you had before that happened. So another thing is there's Drawing Engine skills out there. There's Destiny Draw. You may not have been able to draw more cards than usual, but you can draw the right card in Destiny Draw, but you lose 2,000 life points. Last Gamble, you can draw a lot more cards, but you lower your life points to 100, so it's literally a last-ditch effort, which is still good with certain deck types. Switcheroo allows you to get rid of one card, take another card. Really good. It's almost good for everything. It works with everything. Parasite Infestation. So this one doesn't actually allow you to draw more cards or faster, but what happens is your opponent has now got more cards in his deck. Therefore, his deck is slower, just by comparison. Dual Standby allows you and your opponent to draw an extra card at the beginning. Not too helpful considering your opponent gets the extra card. Extra, you lose a certain amount of life points, you draw 2 cards instead of 1 with Pegasus. It's great, although it's not better than Mind Scan in my opinion. Next, step 4, the card layout of the deck. So, the card layout, it varies depending on what type of deck. It varies a lot depending on what type of deck. But generally, with just an average deck of the majority of the players out there, 0 to 1 level 7 monster, unless your deck, let's say, is geared toward summoning Blue Eyes with Kaiba Man, then you can run more. But you don't really want to run more than, 1 level 7 monster. It's just too many. Unless you have the summoning power that you can really use. Then there's 0 to 2 level 5 to 7 monsters. Yes, I included 7. You don't really want to have too many sacrifice creatures in a 20 card deck. Especially in this small format, it's more speed based than it is long drawn out, turn by turn shifting battles, plus there's only 4,000 life points. It's really small. So, enough said. 6 to 12 level 1 to 4 monsters. When I say 12, that subtracts out your level 7s. So if you run 2 level 5 to 7s, you want 10. You never want more than 12 monsters. 12 out of 20 is good enough. That's tops. But you also don't want to run too little. You gotta have minimum 6 monsters. Even cards that are spell and trap heavy, like burn decks, you could probably get away with 4, but 6 is probably a good minimum. Spell and traps, I don't consider them categories. Really, I consider spell and traps are strengths and protections. 2 to 8 strength, 2 to 7 protections, kind of the same thing. Really depends on what type of deck you're using. So what do I mean by strengths and protection? Well, protection cards are cards that increase your attack or defense beyond your opponent's monster. So I'll get to that later. Cards that decrease your opponent's attack or defense, cards that change your opponent's battle position. So what examples can I say of those protection cards? Reinforcement or Rising Energy, good example. Someone attacks, you make your attack bigger, their card is destroyed. Simple enough, increase your attack. Mirror Wall lowers their attack, so your monster is bigger and they're destroyed. Another thing, change your opponent's battle position. This is Windstorm of Takwa, Enemy Controller, Sphere Karibo. There's a few more, not nearly as good as those, but immensely helpful all the same. All defensive cards, what I call protection cards. Strength cards, cards that increase your monster's attack. Cards that allow you to summon more monsters. Cards that stop enemy protection cards. Cards that destroy enemy creatures. So, what kind of cards do I mean? For the first one, increase your monster's attack, Gravity Axe Gnarl, Big Bang Shot, increase 500, increase 400 piercing damage. You know, good stuff. Cards that allow you to summon more monsters, Elegant Egotist, Double Summon, good stuff. It increases your playability. There's also monster effects that have more summons, great. Number 3, cards that stop enemy protection, Trap Jammer, Magic Drain. Can change the entire tide of a battle. Usually you want to use them during the battle phase. Usually the prompt is pretty good at that. Cards that destroy enemy creatures. Wild Tornado or Order to Charge. Wild Tornado you got to use in a Harpy deck, or you use the Storm and blow it up. But you got to blow up your spell card or your trap card, and then it blows up one of their monsters. Order to Charge, you blow up your normal monster, it blows up one of their monsters. Pretty good stuff, destroy enemy creatures. Pretty standard. That's what I mean by protection and strength cards. However, there's a lot of cards that do not fit in these two categories. And what do I say about them? Don't run them. Strictly, just don't run them. For instance, there's a lot of people running Enchanted Javelin. That life point boost does not help. I'm telling you, let's say you run the Enchanted Javelin first turn, someone's attacking your defense monster, boom, you get up to, let's say, 5,800 life points. Well, what good is 5,800 life points? If you're gonna that's one card you could have drew that would have helped you anyways. If you're getting hit directly and you're losing life points, you've already lost the game, basically. I mean, there's just not good point in using cards that decrease life points or increase life points, whatever. But that's your judge, but I would say just don't run them. Leave them alone. Step 5, building the deck. So, I'm going to run through some example decks with you, and I'm going to explain why they're good and why they work. And they've been very, very tested by me and my friends. And we've all King of Games players. We know our stuff. So, Bandit Keith Switcheroo Angel deck. Switcheroo is going to be getting nerfed soon. We don't know when, but it will. But this deck will not be affected by the Switcheroo skill nerf, because we have the Agent of Venus, and we'll get to that. So first of all, we got the drawing engine skill. Remember, I said drawing engines are important. So we can switcheroo what we want when we want it. At least twice. So we have the 2 level 7 to 8 pawn usage monsters. When I say pawn, I mean you gotta get rid of 2 monsters in the field and 1 in the graveyard. Not too difficult to actually do with this deck in particular. Why? Because in the next one, 3 draw summoning engine monsters. When I say draw and summoning, I mean you summon the Agent of Venus creation and it draws out of the deck and it summons it immediately. 500 life points each. So when you do that twice, you can use switcheroo again. So it won't be affected with this deck. Then we have 3 flip summoning monsters. These flip summons are very important because of the atmosphere card. And what you do is you just put a bubonic vermin face down, put a half shut. Your opponent attacks, your card lives, and it summons another one. And turn 2, you flip it, and you get another one. Three monsters there. You can figure out how to use the atmosphere from there. It's not too difficult. But either way, next we have the Dunam's Dark Witch, 1800 attack monster, strictly in there because it's, it fits in the deck. It's a very strong card. Sometimes you just need that card. Plus it's a normal monster, which you'll see later. We've got 3 summoning pawns used by the Agent of Venus creation, get you those extra summons, plus it goes through your deck. Now, we've got 2 half shuts, which are going to be needed there to keep alive on your Atmosphere, Dunam's Dark Witch, or your Agent of Venus creation. Pretty important, especially when you're trying to summon that Atmosphere early on in the game, steal your opponent's monster. Then we have 3 Order to Charges. The Order to Charge is great because it gives you a monster advantage early on in the game. What I mean by a monster advantage, you put down Agent of Venus creation, and you summon a Mystic Shine Ball, 500 life points, boom. Order to charge it, get rid of your opponent's monster. Most likely they put it in defense, and they could have put it in offense in turn 1, doesn't matter. Then you summon 2 more Shine Balls, and you put down a Order to Charge face down. Then your opponent summons a monster next turn, you blow it up. And now you have a big monster advantage. And you can win without without atmosphere. You can even win with attacking directly with those shine balls. Doesn't matter. Then we have the enemy controllers and Atakwa, just to keep cards alive, because people are really going to go heavy on that atmosphere. Alright, that's it for that deck, and let's go to the next one. The next deck, we have the Yami-Yugi Power of Dark Gravekeepers deck. Why I say all of that is because Yugi has the Power of Dark skill. Power of Dark skill levels up all of these monsters. When I say protection, strength, monster skill. Basically, it helps all your monsters with 200 attack and 200 defense. Very important. It's non-draw ability, but it's protection that you need with this deck. It's a very good deck. First of all, we got 2 level 10 1-sack use monsters. They're only 1 sack when you stack your Gravekeepers, but you can see everything in this deck is a Gravekeeper except for the Legion and Fiend Jesters. And we'll get to the Legion and Fiend Jester in just a sec. Now I've got 3 level 5 1-sack extra summon. When I say extra summon, it summons a Gravekeeper on contact from your graveyard, which turns the tide of the game immediately all the time. It's a very, very fast-paced deck. Now, you'll notice that it's got a lot of sacrifice monsters, which means you need a lot of cards to be able to sacrifice for the monsters, which the next monster comes in handy. 2 extra tribute level 4 monsters. Legion and Fiend Jester, you guys may have noticed that it has a secondary effect. It doesn't work in this deck, but it works in a lot of other decks. It doesn't really matter to me. But its primary effect is it allows you to get an extra tribute off during that turn. Meaning you could summon Legion of Fiend Jester and immediately sacrifice it for a chief, or you can have, let's say, a monster down in the neck that survived last turn, put down Legion of Fiend Jester, which is your normal summon, and then sack your other card for an Oracle or a Chief. Very helpful, especially when it comes to now you've got 3 monsters instead of 2. Plus, it works every turn. You can go through your deck rather fast too, as well, especially with the recruiters if you stack them over and over again. Next, we have the 3 drawing engine level 4 monsters. These are the recruiters. They take 1 Gravekeeper from the deck and add it to your hand once they go to the graveyard. And it can go to the graveyard anyway. Get destroyed by, let's say, order to charge, get destroyed by monster stacking, get destroyed. As long as it's not in your hand and it goes to the graveyard, you get a monster, which means you draw. And if you summon a chief over it, you get your monster and you get the recruiter back. So now you drew from the deck, and your opponent's going to have to destroy that recruiter anyways, which are going to get you to draw again, making your deck smaller so you can draw those extra cards. Next we have, after the recruiter, is the Priestess. Priestess, very good first turn card. You put it out, it's got 1900 defense. Even though the card says 1500, it gets 200 boost from Power of Dark, 200 boost from itself. All Gravekeepers get the 200 boost. Makes it very helpful, especially when you summon an Oracle, it's got 22. Then you summon, let's say your opponent has a 2300 monster, you summon out Priestess to give yourself an edge. It's really nice to always be able to have her in your hand, just to be able to boost up your monsters or play defense if your monsters got destroyed. Now, we have Soul Exchange. Soul Exchange is a very, very important part of this card. It's all our deck, and it's a very difficult card to get. But if you have 2 Soul Exchanges, or even 3, because you can swap out a double summon for Soul Exchange, you sacrifice your opponent's monster for a chief. So they lose 1 monster, now you're gaining 2 monsters. So basically you get a huge edge, especially if you just lost everything. It's a big deal. That's the whole point of this deck. Soul Exchange is a very big part. Now we have double summon. Your opponent summoned a big monster. Now you use double summon the recruiter, summon the Oracle, boom, now you get 1 card from your deck and your opponent lost 2000 attack. Very quick, very powerful, this deck. Especially when you're using recruiter more and more, you can draw those spells and traps that'll help you very often, and they're very powerful. Then we've got the 2 enemy controllers, pretty obvious. Another good part of the enemy controller in this deck is sacrificing your, let's say you don't have a chief in your hand. You got a recruiter on the field, they attacked it, it wasn't destroyed. Now, you use the enemy controller, use the second effect. Plop out your recruiter, then you can pick the chief. You take your opponent's monster, you sack the chief, you get your let's say Oracle in the grave, or you get the recruiter back, and your opponent's down a monster. Plus you don't have to wait a turn because of Soul Exchange either. Then we have Magic Drain, which the big part that loses to this, or this deck loses to, is Relinquished. And if you use Magic Drain on opponent's Relinquished summoning card, it ridiculously screws over the deck. So they got to get rid of a spell in their hand, which there's not very many spells in good Relinquished decks. And basically they're getting rid of a Fulfillment of Contract, or they're getting rid of another Relinquished. So no matter what, Magic Drain kills one Relinquished. Whether it be the first, the second, or the third, it always kills a Relinquished if you're facing the deck. If not, you can use it on enemy controller on any other deck. It's very good. And Mirror Wall helps you survive that first turn to get out your Oracle or Chief. Our next deck we have here is probably one of the best decks, is the May Valentine's Harpy's Hunting Ground Harpy deck. So the Harpy's Hunting Ground is a strength monster skill. By strength, I mean it destroys frickin' spells and traps. And that's a very big part of the game, because the spells and traps are what protects you. So this deck is very fast. This deck that I put out is very fast paced too. If you notice, it's got a pretty small amount of protection cards in there. Some of them are dual protection and strength, so I counted them. So here we have the level 6 Harpy's Sisters card. Now you have to use Elegant Egotist with a Harpy out to use this, but it's a big card. It's pretty strong, gets through most everything, especially with the field spell out, 2100 attack, 2150 I mean. Then we have the level 4 attack boost Harpy. This card increases all Harpy's attack, not defense but attack, and obviously destroys a spell or trap. Very powerful. Birdface, big card, 1600 attack, 1600 defense. With the field spell it's 1800. It can usually survive first turn. Even if it doesn't survive, you want it to die. You always put it in defense mode. You barely ever use it in attack mode. It's got to die in a battle in order to get you a Harpy from your deck. Also drawing power right there. Now, once you have that Harpy with Birdface, you can go through their defense pretty quickly. Then we have Possessed Dark Soul. Possessed Dark Soul is very good in, let's say, you're facing another Harpy deck, or you're facing a Gravekeeper deck. You can steal all level 3 and lower monsters, or you can face a deck that just straight up has like Jerry Beans and other Sonic Birds and whatnot. Stealing a 3-star usually works, especially against Relinquished. You can steal Relinquished because Relinquished is only a 1-star monster. Then we have the Sonic Ducks, just high attack monsters. They're beaters, got low defense. Beware of that. Regular Harpies. Remember, Sonic, Bird, and Harpy, the regular Harpy ladies, are normal monsters, because the next card is Order to Charge. Order to Charge destroys a normal monster and destroys your opponent. You can use Order to Charge whenever your opponent is about to get an advantage against you, or your monster has been rendered useless, let's say by Oracle's minus 2000 attack and defense. You get rid of your monster, destroy their monster. Enemy controller, pretty obvious, flip defense mode. Now, the Elegant Egotists are what makes you win in this deck. I'd like to say it is, at least. Summon a Harpy, destroy your opponent's spell or trap, or you can use your Wild Tornadoes, destroy their monster. Then you use Elegant Egotist, destroy another spell or trap, or destroy another one of your spell or traps. Don't be afraid to use Elegant Egotist, and the only trap or spell that you can destroy is your field spell. That is, you gotta do that sometimes, because it allows you to attack directly, get that damage in for the win. Then you have the Mirror Wall, keeps a Harpy alive. You know, they've got pretty low attack and defense. Also Sonic Duck, although Sonic Duck has a pretty low defense in general, so beware on Sonic Duck with the Mirror Wall. Wild Tornadoes, you blow those up with your Harpies, or let's say you're facing an opponent's deck and they're using the deck that focuses on the Wonder Balloons, and It blows up a continuous speller trap. Pretty important. Pretty cool. When Storm of Topwell keeps your harpies alive. You know. Next deck. So the last deck I have for you is probably the best version of the Relinquish deck out there. We have the Drawing Engine skill, Switcheroo. Very important, especially in this deck. Then we got 3 Relinquished, and then 3 of the Relinquished spell. So a big part of the deck already is Relinquished. Then we've got the Sonic Birds and the Senjus. Senjus and the Sonic Birds get Relinquished parts from your deck. So that's Drawing Engine right there. You now have a smaller deck, and you're going to draw what you want when you want it. You can get your deck really small really quickly thanks to the Thunder Dragons. Basically, you put the monster out there, special summon, special, it's special effect, and then you get 2 more from the deck, then you switcheroo 1 back into the deck, then you use the effect again, get it from the deck. Basically, from your 1 Thunder Dragon, you now have your deck 2 cards smaller, and your hand now has an extra card and the Thunder Dragon, which you can use in the summoning of Relinquished. It's very helpful, so you don't have to get rid of another monster. Then we also have a lot of protection cards in here. Sphere Kuribohs you can use to summon Relinquished after you've used the effect, so make sure to let your opponent attack your Sonic Bird or whatever. So then you use the Kuribohs, and you use those for your Relinquished. Keep the Thunder Dragon for later, just in case you're in a pickle. Then you got the enemy controllers, keep yourself alive till you get the Relinquished out. Interdimensional Matter Transporters, protection and strength, right here. Because you use Interdimensional Transporter during your opponent's end phase. So what happens is you've taken their monster, now at the end of their turn, your card goes out of the play, and it says at the end of the turn it goes back into play. So then once you're about to draw, it comes right back in. Then you can steal another monster. Or your opponent is about to launch 2 attacks against your Relinquished, and you know it's going to die, so you pop that out of play, and you pop it back in play, and you steal their monster next turn. Very good. This card, you can get the deck really small, really fast, like I said. I've even seen it go down to 12 cards in 1 turn. I mean, 12 cards, when there's 12 cards, you're going to draw what? You're going to draw something that's going to help you, guaranteed. That's about it for this deck building guide. Thank you. My name is Steve.